In the previous part, we explored how Dorne was peacefully integrated into the Seven Kingdoms through the efforts of Daeron II. It seemed as though the realm might finally enjoy a long era of peace, but no. The consequences of the 12 years of corrupt and disastrous rule under Aegon IV had begun to erupt. Daemon Blackfyre, the bastard son of Aegon IV, openly rebelled, and many lords rallied to his side. Faced with such a grave threat, how would Daeron II respond? Once again, we step into another age of turmoil in the history of the Targaryen dynasty. 1. The First Blackfyre Rebellion, the Battle of the Redgrass Field. As mentioned before, after many years of persuasion and pleading by Aegon Rivers, Bittersteel, Daemon Blackfyre finally resolved to seize the Iron Throne for himself. Did Daemon truly have that right? In the past, the answer would have been no. Though he was the son of Aegon IV and Princess Daena, he was still a bastard, and Aegon IV had named Daeron as his heir. However, Aegon IV's final decree legitimized all of his bastards, which effectively made Daemon the eldest legitimate son of Aegon IV. Although Daeron remained the lawful heir, Daemon could now claim the right to take the Iron Throne for himself. Daemon proclaimed himself king, and almost immediately King Daeron learned of the rebellion. This raised an interesting question. How did the king learn so quickly, when even ravens had not yet delivered the news? Many believe that another of Aegon IV's bastards, Brynden Rivers, informed the king. But how did Brynden Rivers know? Let us briefly speak of Brynden Rivers. Brynden Rivers was the son of Aegon IV and Lady Melissa Blackwood. House Blackwood, though seated in the Riverlands, worships the old gods of the north and carries the ancient blood of the first men. Those who possess the blood of the first men often have some degree of skin-changing ability, though very few can truly use it. Skin changers are individuals who can enter the minds of certain animals. The Stark children in A Song of Ice and Fire possess this gift. Talented skin changers may bond with multiple animals. One such example is Varamir Sixskins, a wildling who could enter 6 different beasts. Brynden Rivers possessed this ability as well, but his powers surpassed nearly all others. He was a green seer. Among 1,000 men, one may be a skin changer. Among 1,000 skin changers, one may be a green seer. A green seer can see visions of the past and the future, skin change into any animal, and even perceive the world through the eyes of weirwood trees. In other words, as long as something lay within his reach, he could know what was happening there. Thus, it can be said that every plan and movement of Daemon Blackfyre was laid bare before Brynden Rivers. Yet Brynden chose loyalty to Daeron rather than joining Daemon's rebellion. King Daeron immediately ordered the Kingsguard to arrest Daemon, but Daemon managed to escape and began raising an army. Many lords supported him, though he still needed time to gather sufficient strength to strike. A battle was inevitable, and everyone knew it would be brutal. 1 year later, the war came. It was fought on a nameless field, but after that day, the place would forever be known as the Redgrass Field. Many fought alongside Daemon, lords and knights alike. Some were true knights who fought with great valor. Others merely used the rebellion as an excuse to betray House Targaryen. But because they fought for the wrong cause, all their bravery and accomplishments were erased. 2 great armies met beneath the banners of the Red Dragon of House Targaryen and the Black Dragon of House Blackfyre. Daemon himself led the Blackfyre center. The left wing was commanded by Lord Costane, while the right was led by Lord Shawnee and Aegon Rivers, Bittersteel. On the Targaryen side, the powerful Tyrell host had not yet arrived, leaving the royal forces seemingly at a severe disadvantage. On that day, no one seemed capable of stopping Daemon Blackfyre's assault. His army crushed the vanguard of Lord Donal Arryn. The fighting was savage. Shouts and the clash of steel echoed across the field. Daemon charged relentlessly, riding straight toward a knight whose left hand bore a plain white shield with no sigil, whose right wielded a strange gray blade, unlike ordinary swords. A white cloak flowed behind him, and corpses lay all around. This was Sir Gawain Corbray of the King's Guard. Their duel became legendary, a turning point in the blood-soaked battle. It was a clash between two great knights and two Valyrian steel swords, Blackfyre, wielded by Daemon, and Lady Forlorn, wielded by Sir Gawain. They fought with terrifying ferocity. Each clash of their blades rang out for more than a mile. In the end, the superior warrior prevailed. Daemon cleaved through Sir Gawain's helm, blinding him and leaving him bleeding. Sir Gawain fell from his horse. Daemon dismounted, but instead of striking the killing blow, he ordered Sir Gawain carried to the rear for treatment by the maesters, perhaps out of respect for his courage. This mercy proved to be Daemon Blackfyre's fatal mistake. At that very moment, Brynden Rivers, known as Bloodraven, appeared with his force called the Raven's Teeth, positioned atop Weeping Ridge, about 300 yards away, with a clear view of Daemon. Bloodraven loosed an arrow and killed Daemon's eldest son, Aegon, who stood nearby. Knowing Daemon would not abandon his son's body, and indeed he did not, Daemon rushed to Aegon's corpse. Seizing the moment, Bloodraven and the Raven's Teeth fired 7 arrows at once, all striking Daemon. Blackfyre fell from his grasp. Daemon's other son, Aemon, Aegon's twin, ran forward to seize the sword and continue commanding the army, but Bloodraven shot him dead on the spot. Bloodraven was a master archer, but to shoot with such deadly precision at 300 yards, perhaps magic played a role. With their leader slain, the Blackfyre host began to break. But Bittersteel surged forward, seized the sword Blackfyre, and rallied Daemon's men into a furious counterattack. He led them straight at Bloodraven's forces. The two commanders finally faced one another. Bloodraven had no choice but to discard his favored white weirwood bow and draw Dark Sister. Thus began the second legendary duel of the battle, one man wielding Blackfyre, the other Dark Sister. Bittersteel tore out one of Bloodraven's eyes, yet the two famed Valyrian blades continued to ring, until Prince Baelor Breakspear arrived with forces from the Stormlands and Dorne, striking Bittersteel's rear, while the young Prince Maekar regrouped the remnants of Donal Arryn's army and attacked anew. With no other choice, Bittersteel fled, along with thousands of survivors. The rebellion was finally crushed. 10,000 lay dead, many more wounded or maimed, and King Daeron's hopes of lasting peace were reduced to ashes. In Essos, Bittersteel continued to gather exiled lords and knights, along with the surviving sons of Daemon Blackfyre. In 212 AC, he founded the Golden Company, which would grow into one of the most powerful and renowned sellsword companies in Essos. Their motto, "Beneath the gold, the bitter steel," became known across the free cities. After Bittersteel's death, the Golden Company was led by the descendants of Daemon Blackfyre, until the last of the line, Meleys, was slain in the Stepstones by a young knight. 2. The Second Blackfyre Rebellion, the reign of Aerys I. After the war ended, King Daeron grew increasingly strict. Many lords and knights who had once supported the Blackfyres were stripped of their lands and castles and were required to send hostages to the Red Keep. Daeron had trusted them, done what he believed to be fair, and yet they had turned against him once more. The remaining sons of Daemon Blackfyre fled to Tyrosh, the homeland of their mother, accompanied by Bittersteel. From that point on, the Seven Kingdoms would continue to be threatened by Daemon's heirs for 4 more generations, until the last bearer of Blackfyre blood was finally slain. With the help of his half-brother and the strength of his loyal sons, many believed King Daeron would restore House Targaryen to greatness and rule for centuries to come. They also believed that Prince Baelor Breakspear would one day be a great king. He was kind-hearted, wise in judgment, and later served his father as Hand of the King. But the gods, as ever, seemed fond of cruel jokes. At the height of his glory, Baelor Breakspear was accidentally killed by his younger brother Maekar during the Trial of Seven at Ashford in 209 AC. This was no ordinary joust or weapons duel, but the first Trial of Seven in a century. Prince Baelor fought alongside a low-born hedge knight solely to save that knight's life. Baelor's death was truly an accident. Of that there is little doubt. And many accounts say that Prince Maekar was haunted by guilt for the rest of his life, visiting his brother's grave every year. With Baelor dead and Maekar burdened by lifelong sorrow, the realm asked itself, How could the life of a humble hedge knight be worth that of the Prince of Dragonstone and the hand of the king? The price seemed unbearably unjust, but the realm would later learn just how great that hedge knight would become. Yes, that knight was Sir Duncan the Tall, one of the greatest knights the Seven Kingdoms would ever know. Baelor left behind 2 sons, Valar and Materys, while Maekar had 4 sons of his own. King Daeron himself also had 2 other sons, Aerys, a man deeply fond of books and ancient mysteries, and Rhaegal. Not long afterward, the Great Spring Sickness swept across Westeros. Nearly every region was struck, except for the Vale and Dorne, which swiftly sealed their mountain passes and ports. King's Landing suffered the worst. Corpses piled up across the city in such numbers that Bloodraven ordered them burned. A quarter of the city's population perished, including both of Baelor's sons, and King Daeron II himself, who had ruled for 25 years, most of them peaceful. With Daeron's sudden death, and with Baelor and his sons already gone, the crown passed to Aerys, Daeron's second son, though he had never expected to become king. Aerys ascended the throne in 209 AC. He was well educated, but deeply fascinated by ancient magic and mysterious phenomena. He married Alinor Penrose, yet showed little interest in producing heirs. Rumors even claimed that he never shared a bed with his wife after their wedding. Many urged him to take another wife, but Aerys paid them no heed. Ascending the throne amid the Great Spring Sickness, Aerys's first challenge was the chaos the plague had unleashed upon the capital. The disease had weakened the entire realm, and seizing the opportunity, Dagon Greyjoy, Lord of the Iron Islands, sent his longships raiding along the coasts of the Sunset Sea. Across the narrow sea, Bittersteel continued to support the sons of Daemon Blackfyre in their efforts to renew the war. For the first time, the Seven Kingdoms faced threats from all directions at once. Perhaps for this reason, Aerys named Bloodraven as his new Hand of the King. Some believe this was because Aerys's fascination with magic and ancient lore led him to entrust great power to Bloodraven, who was deeply versed in the arcane. Bloodraven's influence at the Red Keep grew rapidly, though few ever imagined he would rise to the position of Hand. When the king announced the appointment, Aerys and his brother Maekar quarreled bitterly. Maekar believed the position should have been his. Soon after, Maekar left King's Landing to reside at Summerhall. Despite the controversy, Bloodraven quickly proved himself a capable Hand, also assuming the role of Master of Whisperers. His reputation grew so great that many believed he and his half-sister, Shiera Seastar, used sorcery to uncover everyone's secrets. He became so feared that a common saying of the time claimed he had 1,001 eyes. Small folk and nobles alike trusted no one, fearing they were being watched by one of Bloodraven's spies. When summer arrived, it brought with it a devastating drought that lasted more than 2 years. Many blamed the king, others laid the blame squarely on Bloodraven. Preachers, knights, and even lords began spreading seditious ideas throughout the realm. And among all their whispers, 3 words rose above the rest: the Black Dragon. They claimed the Blackfyres should return and claim the Iron Throne. The chief architect of this plot was Lord Gorman Peake, who had supported Daemon Blackfyre during the First Rebellion. After the defeat, Peake had been stripped of 2 of his 3 ancestral castles. When the drought and the Great Spring Sickness had passed, Lord Gorman persuaded Daemon the Younger, the eldest surviving son of Daemon Blackfyre, to cross the narrow sea and act. The conspiracy began in 211 AC, during a tourney held to celebrate a wedding at Whitewalls, the castle of Lord Butterwell near the God's Eye. Butterwell had once served as Hand of the King to Daeron II, until he was dismissed after the king suspected him of deliberately failing during the war against Daemon Blackfyre. Under the guise of a wedding tourney, many lords and knights gathered beneath the walls of Whitewalls, united by a single desire: to help the Blackfyres rise again and seize the Iron Throne. The events at Whitewalls are recounted in detail in Tales of Dunk and Egg, The Mystery Knight, George R.R. Martin's novella about the hedge knight Sir Duncan the Tall. Once again, Bloodraven knew everything. How, none could understand. When Daemon the Younger prepared to rise and strike at the heart of the Riverlands, he instead found Bloodraven's army standing firmly beneath the castle walls. Thus, the Second Blackfyre Rebellion died in its cradle, without a single battle being fought. Gorman Peake and the chief conspirators were executed. Others, such as Lord Butterwell, were stripped of all lands and castles, and White Walls was razed to the ground. Daemon the Younger survived for several more years, imprisoned in the Red Keep, his continued survival preventing his brother Aegon from invading the Seven Kingdoms while he still lived. Daemon the Younger dreamed of becoming king, but Bittersteel did not believe in him and refused to support his claim. Why Bittersteel championed the father yet rejected the son remains a subject of debate at the Citadel. Many argue that Daemon and Lord Gorman failed to convince Bittersteel because their plan was fundamentally flawed, and history proved them right. Gorman was blinded by vengeance and the desire to reclaim his lost castles, while Daemon acted rashly, without weighing the risks. Others believe Bittersteel was simply a hard man, one who rarely placed any faith in dreams at all. 3. The Third Blackfyre Rebellion, the reign of Maekar I. The Second Blackfyre Rebellion ended quietly, but other sons of Daemon Blackfyre were still alive, which meant the matter was far from over. In 219 AC, Aegon Blackfyre and Bittersteel launched the Third Blackfyre Rebellion. This time, the conflict erupted into a brutal war, and once again the Targaryens emerged victorious. Thanks to the capable leadership of Prince Maekar, the actions of Prince Aegon, Maekar's second son, Aegon, Maekar's youngest son, and, most notably, the renewed clash between Bloodraven and Bittersteel, House Targaryen prevailed. Aegon Blackfyre surrendered, but was later slain by a traitor. Sir Aegor Rivers, Bittersteel, was captured alive, chained, and brought back to the Red Keep. Many believe King Aerys I should have executed Bittersteel. Prince Aerion and Bloodraven both urged the king to do so, arguing that it would end Bittersteel's ambitions and finally put an end to the Blackfyre cause. But that did not happen. Despite Bittersteel's grave crimes, King Aerys spared his life and sentenced him to the Night's Watch, sending him to the Wall. This mercy proved foolish, for the Blackfyres still had friends within the Red Keep, some of them willing to act as spies. The ship carrying Bittersteel and dozens of hostages toward Eastwatch by the Sea was attacked. Aegor Rivers was freed and returned to the Golden Company. Before the year was out, Bittersteel once again crowned the eldest son of Aegon, Daemon III Blackfyre, in Tyrosh, and resumed plotting an invasion against the king who had spared his life. King Aerys died 2 years later, in 221 AC. During his reign, Aerys had many heirs, but none of them were his own children. He died without ever consummating his marriage. His brother Rhaegal, the third son of King Daeron II, had died in 215 AC, and Rhaegal's son Aelor, who had been named Prince of Dragonstone, died in 217 AC in an accident. Thus the succession passed to Aerys's youngest brother and the last surviving son of Daeron II, Prince Maekar. Maekar was both a stern king and a formidable warrior, but also a harsh man. He never possessed the gift the gods had given his elder brother Baelor, the ability to easily make friends and allies. After Baelor's death at Maekar's hands, though unintentional, Maekar grew increasingly rigid and unforgiving. He forged a new crown for himself, a martial-looking circlet of red gold set with black iron spikes, radiating authority and aggression, perfectly reflecting his nature. It was second only to the crown of Aegon the Conqueror, which had been lost in Dorne after the death of Daeron the Young Dragon. The chief issue of Maekar's reign was the question of succession. He had both sons and daughters, yet none seemed fit to rule. His eldest son Daeron preferred the title Prince of Summerhall over Prince of Dragonstone, finding Dragonstone dull, an implicit rejection of the succession, as the heir to the Iron Throne must bear the title Prince of Dragonstone. Maekar's second son Aerion was brave but cruel, volatile, and obsessed with dark arts. Both princes died before their father, though both left children behind. Daeron had a daughter, Aerion had a son, and named the boy Maegor after Maegor the Cruel. Since Maegor's reign, the Targaryens had avoided that name, believing it cursed. Yet this was not Aerion's greatest madness. Obsessed with the dragons of his ancestors, Aegon one day decided he would transform himself into a dragon by drinking a flask of wildfire. No dragon appeared, only screams, and then ashes. Thereafter, he became known as Aegon Brightflame. Maekar's third son, Aemon, named after the Dragon Knight, preferred books to battle. Sent to the citadel at a young age, he later swore vows as a maester and renounced any claim to rule. Maekar's youngest son, Aegon, once served as a squire to a hedge knight after running away from home. That knight was Sir Duncan the Tall, and at the time, Aegon called himself Egg. In 233 AC, a lord in the Dornish marches rebelled, and Maekar personally led his army to put down the uprising. Tragically, the king was killed in battle. His sudden death left the small council uncertain over the succession. To prevent another civil war, Bloodraven, as hand of the king, summoned a great council to choose a new ruler. In 233 AC, following Maekar's death, hundreds of lords great and small gathered in King's Landing. With Maekar's two eldest sons already dead, 4 candidates remained. The Great Council immediately dismissed Daeron's daughter. Some proposed Maegor, Aerion's son, but most feared the boy had inherited his father's madness and cruelty, fearing the 7 kingdoms would once again bleed under a king named Maegor. They then turned to Aemon, despite his maester's vows. The High Septon offered to release him from those vows if he accepted the crown, but Aemon refused. "I was born to serve, not to rule," he said. Part of his reason was his belief that his younger brother would make a better king. That left Aegon, Maekar's youngest son, as the final option. Some lords still distrusted him, for he had spent his youth wandering the realm with a hedge knight, living as a commoner. While the Great Council still debated, another claimant sought to appear in King's Landing, Daemon Blackfyre, the 5th of Daemon Blackfyre's 7 sons. When word of the Great Council reached him, Aenys received a mysterious letter urging him to attend, claiming that words might win him the Iron Throne more surely than bloodshed had won it for his father. Bloodraven replied personally, promising Aenys safe conduct and the opportunity to present his claim before the court at the Red Keep. Thus, Daemon Blackfyre came to King's Landing. The moment he entered the city watch arrested him on Bloodraven's orders. Aenys was taken to the Red Keep and executed. His head was placed upon a spike for all the lords to see, a warning to anyone who dared speak the name Blackfyre again. At last, Aegon was chosen king, ascending the throne as Aegon V. He would later be called Aegon the Unlikely, for he was the 4th son of a 4th son and yet became king. Aegon's first act upon taking the throne was to arrest Brynden Rivers, the Hand of the King, for the murder of Daemon Blackfyre. Why was this a crime? Because Bloodraven had personally guaranteed Aenys' safety, and in Westeros, harming a guest is a vile offense, the same reason the massacre of House Stark at the Red Wedding is so universally reviled. Bloodraven did not deny luring the pretender to the Red Keep and killing him after promising protection. He declared that he would rather sacrifice his honor to save the realm than allow it to bleed. Many agreed with him, and indeed a Blackfyre had been destroyed. But Aegon V felt he had no choice. To relent would make a king's word worthless. After sentencing Bloodraven to death, Aegon instead offered him the chance to take the Black and join the Night's Watch. Bloodraven accepted. Sir Brynden Rivers sailed for the Wall at the end of 233 AC, accompanied by 200 men, many of them archers from his elite force, the Raven's Teeth. Also aboard the ship was the king's elder brother Aemon, who chose to serve at the Wall in part because he knew certain lords would seek to use him against his younger brother. Bloodraven served the Night's Watch with distinction, becoming Lord Commander in 239 AC. He vanished beyond the Wall during arranging in 252 AC, and would later become known as the Three-Eyed Crow, the being who guided Brandon Stark toward his destiny. 4. The Fourth Blackfyre Rebellion, the tragedy at Summerhall. Aegon's reign was a trial from the very beginning, for it opened with a winter that lasted more than 3 years with no sign of ending. Countless people starved and suffered terribly in the north, reminding many of another winter just as brutal, the one that stretched from 130 to 135 AC. King Aegon cared deeply for the poor and the sick. He did everything he could to provide them with more food, constantly pushing for supplies to be transported north to save the people. His ability to rule was soon tested by enemies he had already encountered back when he was still a prince, men who longed to reclaim power and the Iron Throne. The Black Dragons of House Blackfyre had not abandoned their ambitions after the death of Aenys Blackfyre. The hatred of the exiles only grew deeper with time. And at last, in 236 AC, when winter had dragged into its 6th year, the 4th Blackfyre rebellion erupted. Daemon III Blackfyre took command, Aegon's son and Daemon Blackfyre's grandson. He crossed the narrow sea with Bittersteel and the Golden Company, driven by the ambition to claim the Iron Throne. The invaders landed at Massey's Hook, south of Blackwater Bay, but only a handful in Westeros rose to support them. Aegon V himself, together with his 3 sons, led the Targaryen host to meet Daemon III. The Battle of Wendwater Bridge followed, and the Blackfyre forces were swiftly crushed. Daemon III was slain by a Kingsguard knight, Sir Duncan the Tall. Bittersteel was captured once again, and once again he escaped. A few years later he appeared in a war between Tyrosh and Myr, where he died at the age of 69, sword in hand, still cursing with his last breath. Yet his legacy lived on through the Golden Company and the Blackfyre line he had served and protected. The 4th Blackfyre Rebellion was not the only conflict of Aegon V's reign. He was forced to spend much of his rule in armor, moving from one war to the next. Though beloved by the small folk, Aegon V made many enemies among the great lords of the 7 kingdoms, men who sought to seize power from him. For the king had issued laws granting new rights and protections to the common people, rights the lords had never known before. With each new decree, another lord challenged him or defied his commands. Many even branded him a tyrant who stole the authority the gods had supposedly granted them. With opposition rising again and again, the king was compelled to make concessions. Aegon had always loved history and books, and he believed that if he possessed dragons, his greatest desire, he could rule the realm more easily and make the 7 kingdoms peaceful, prosperous, and just. And this belief would lead directly to the final tragedy of Aegon V's reign, the tragedy of Summerhall. Even the sons of this kind-hearted king eventually turned against him once they came of age. Aegon V had married for love, Lady Betha Blackwood, daughter of Lord Blackwood. With her black hair and dark eyes, she was known as Black Betha. When they wed in 220 AC, Aegon was 20 and Betha 19, and no one believed Aegon would ever take the throne. In the years that followed, Black Betha bore Aegon 3 sons, Duncan, Jaehaerys, and Daeron, and 2 daughters, Shira and Raelle. Targaryen tradition favored incestuous marriage to preserve the blood of the dragon, but to Aegon, such practices brought more harm than good. Instead of marrying his children to one another, he betrothed them to the sons and daughters of great lords across the realm, hoping such alliances would help him govern more effectively. With Black Betha's help, these betrothals were arranged in 237 AC, while the children were still young. The marriages would take place once they came of age, everything meant for their own good. But the king could not control the nature of his children. They were as stubborn as their father and mother, willing to wed only those they truly loved. Aegon's eldest son, Duncan, Prince of Dragonstone and heir to the Iron Throne, was the first to defy him. Though betrothed to Lord Baratheon's daughter, Duncan became enchanted by a mysterious and lovely girl named Jenny of Oldstones in 239 AC. During a journey to the Riverlands. The villagers around Oldstones claimed she descended from the first men's ancient kings. Others whispered that she was mad, or perhaps a witch. Aegon had once lived among the common folk himself, sleeping beneath ragged roofs, under open skies, enduring heat and rain, growing up alongside them. Yet approving this marriage was something he could not accept. The king tried every means to prevent it, demanding that Duncan abandon Jenny. But the stubbornness Duncan had inherited from his father proved stronger. Duncan refused. Even when the High Septon, the Grand Maester, and the small council intervened and offered him the final choice, Jenny or the Iron Throne, Duncan still chose Jenny. He surrendered his claim to his brother Jaehaerys and renounced the title Prince of Dragonstone. This left Storm's End deeply offended by the broken betrothal. The girl's father, Lord Lionel Baratheon, called the laughing Storm for his constant laughter, though no one truly knew what he thought, was a fierce warrior and not a man who easily forgave an insult to his pride. A short, bloody rebellion erupted at once, until it was ended when the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, Sir Duncan the Tall, defeated Lord Lionel in single combat. Aegon V then made amends by betrothing his youngest daughter Rhaelle to Lord Lionel's heir. To ensure the match would hold, Princess Rhaelle was sent to Storm's End, serving as Lionel's cupbearer and becoming a companion to his wife. Meanwhile, Jenny of Oldstones was accepted at the Red Keep and became known as Lady Jenny. The romance between Jenny and Prince Duncan, later called the Prince of Dragonflies, remained the favorite subject of singers for many years. Aegon's second son, Jaehaerys, was now Prince of Dragonstone. Aegon himself had grown indifferent to old Valyrian customs during the years he lived among the small folk, but Jaehaerys was different. From childhood, he loved his sister Shira and wished to marry her in the Targaryen manner. When Aegon and Queen Betha learned this, they tried everything to separate the two before they reached adulthood. Jaehaerys was not as unyielding as his elder brother, yet after seeing Duncan defy their father for love and force the realm to accept it, Jaehaerys wanted the same. In 240 AC, 1 year after Duncan's wedding, Jaehaerys and Shira secretly wed. By the time the king and queen discovered the truth, the marriage had already been consummated and sealed. Aegon had no choice but to accept it. Once again, the king was forced to face wounded pride and furious lords, for Jaehaerys had been betrothed to Celia Tully, daughter of the Lord of Riverrun, while Shira had been promised to Luthor Tyrell, heir to Highgarden. Jaehaerys and Shira had 2 children, Aerys and Rhaella. Following Jenny's counsel, Jaehaerys married Aerys to Rhaella. This time, Aegon could not bring himself to care anymore. He left his son to deal with the consequences. And Aegon V's youngest son, Prince Daeron, also chose to follow his heart. Though betrothed at the age of 9 to Lady Olenna Redwine, who would later become the Queen of Thorns on the Arbor, Daeron refused the match in 246 AC, once he turned 18. Yet Daeron did not refuse for love of another woman. He had no lover at all. A soldier by nature, he often fought in tourneys and battles, and frequently traveled with Sir Jeremy Norridge, who had served alongside him back when Daeron lived at Highgarden. Then grief struck Aegon once more. In 252 AC, both Daeron and Sir Jeremy were killed while leading troops to put down a rebellion. The uprising was crushed, but the loss was too great for Aegon to bear lightly. In 258 AC, another challenge began to emerge across the narrow sea. In Essos, a group of 9 men, outlaws and exiles, pirates and sellsword captains, gathered to form an alliance. The 9 swore to support one another in the kingdoms they sought to claim. Among them was the last of House Blackfyre, Meleys the Monstrous, commander of the Golden Company. And the realm they meant to win for him was the 7 kingdoms. When Prince Duncan heard of this pact, he said those crowns were worth no more than 9 pennies, and so in Westeros, the 9 became known as the 9-penny kings. Many believed the free cities would unite their strength and destroy such a band. Yet they made no move even as Meleys Blackfyre and his allies prepared to march toward Westeros. Still, they did not strike immediately, and Aegon still clung to one last goal of his reign: to bring back the dragons. As he aged, Aegon V often dreamed of flying across the 7 kingdoms on dragonback. He became obsessed with hatching a dragon egg. He ordered priests to pray around the last egg, had sorcerers lay spells upon it, and commanded maesters to try every method they knew to hatch it. Though his friends and the small council tried to convince him to abandon the attempt, Aegon refused, hoping that with dragons, House Targaryen would be mighty again, and the stubborn lords of Westeros would be forced to submit. In the final year of his reign, he sent men far and wide to search for Valyrian knowledge on hatching eggs, even as far as the Shadowlands of Asshai, hoping to find records and lore that might reveal the secret. But his dream of dragons became tragedy at a moment meant for joy. In 259 AC, the king summoned many of his kin to Summerhall, his beloved castle, to celebrate the birth of his great-grandson, Prince Rhaegar, son of Aerys and grandson of Jaehaerys. A dreadful accident occurred, creating the tragedy of Summerhall. Only a few survivors witnessed what truly happened, and none dared speak of it again. A single page in Archmaester Gildane's history, surely among the last pages he wrote before his death, says much. Yet the ink has run, leaving many lines unreadable. The blood of the dragon gathered in one place, 7 eggs, symbolizing the 7, though the priests sought to prevent it. Fire mages, wildfire. Flames spreading everywhere. Control. Savage. So hot that. Died, but through the courage of the Lord Commander of the King's. 5. The Fifth Blackfyre Rebellion, the extinction of House Blackfyre. The tragedy of Summerhall brought Jaehaerys to the throne in 259 AC. The moment he ascended the Iron Throne, the realm was once again drawn into the spiral of war. By then, the Ninepenny Kings had seized Tyrosh and the Stepstones, allowing them an easy path to invade Westeros. As mentioned before, among the Ninepenny Kings stood the final male member of House Blackfyre, Meleys the Monstrous. He earned this nickname due to his massive frame, enormous hands, terrifying strength, and savage nature. Meleys also bore a second, smaller head growing from his neck, no larger than a clenched fist. He won command of the Golden Company by fighting his cousin Daemon Blackfyre, killing him with a single punch and then twisting his head until it tore free from his shoulders. Jaehaerys knew well that their purpose in attacking Westeros was to seize the Iron Throne for Meleys Blackfyre, who had crowned himself Meleys the First Blackfyre. Like his father before him, Jaehaerys hoped that one of the free cities might destroy this alliance, but they did not. Now the decision lay with him. King Aegon V was dead. Prince Duncan was gone. His brother Daeron was also lost. All that remained was Jaehaerys II, the last surviving son of Aegon V. The new king was 34 years old when he took the throne. Unlike his father, Jaehaerys II Targaryen was frail and thin, plagued by illness throughout his life. Yet he lacked neither courage nor the sharp mind he had inherited from Aegon. Following the strategy his father had planned, the king set aside his grief and summoned all his lords and allies to deal with the Ninepenny Kings at the Stepstones themselves. He chose to strike first, rather than wait for them to land upon the shores of Westeros. Jaehaerys wished to lead the army in person, but his hand at the time, Lord Ormond Baratheon, persuaded him otherwise. The king was unseasoned in war and unskilled with weapons. If he were to fall in battle, it would be catastrophic so soon after the tragedy of Summerhall. In the end, Jaehaerys remained in King's Landing and entrusted command to Lord Ormond. In 260 AC, Lord Ormond led the Targaryen host against 3 of the Stepstones, and the War of the Ninepenny Kings began. Lord Ormond was among the first to fall, defeated by Meleys the Monstrous himself. He died in the arms of his eldest son, Steffon Baratheon, the future father of Robert, Stannis, and Renly Baratheon. Command then passed to Sir Gerald Hightower, Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, who replaced the former Lord Commander Sir Duncan the Tall, slain at Summerhall. Hightower and his men struggled through the chaos left by Ormond's death, but when the battle returned to balance, a young knight named Sir Barristan Selmy slew Meleys in single combat. With Meleys dead, the remaining Ninepenny Kings lost all interest in Westeros and withdrew to their own lands. Meleys the Monstrous, the last living male of Daemon Blackfyre's line, was dead, and with him, the curse Aegon IV had laid upon the realm finally came to an end. At last, the 7 kingdoms knew peace. Though sickly, Jaehaerys II proved himself a capable king. He restored order to the realm and amended several of the laws his father had enacted that had angered many lords. Yet, his reign was tragically short. In 262 AC, Jaehaerys II fell ill and died in his bed. He was only 37 years old and had ruled for just 3 years. His successor was his only son and eldest child, Aerys II, initially regarded as bold and intelligent. The realm believed he would achieve great things. But what followed during his 21-year reign earned him the name the Mad King and led to yet another rebellion, one that would end 283 years of Targaryen rule in Westeros, Robert's Rebellion. As for House Blackfyre, Maelys the Monstrous, the last known male of the line, was indeed slain, and many believe that House Blackfyre was extinguished with him. But was it truly so? There may yet be female descendants of the Blackfyres, or perhaps even a hidden male heir. Why raise this question? Because in Book 5 of A Song of Ice and Fire, A Dance with Dragons, a mysterious figure appears, one who plays a crucial role in the struggle for the Iron Throne. He calls himself Aegon Targaryen, the son of Rhaegar Targaryen, supposedly smuggled out of King's Landing in secret when House Targaryen fell. And here lies the surprise. The ones who support this young man are none other than the Golden Company, the sworn enemies of House Targaryen. Is there something hidden here? It makes little sense that the Golden Company, fanatically loyal to the Blackfyres, would suddenly support a fallen Targaryen prince. Why would they do so? Did Varys persuade them? Did the Golden Company see profit in backing Aegon's claim? Or is this Aegon in truth Aegon Blackfyre, and Varys himself a loyalist of House Blackfyre? We cannot yet know for certain. The true answer lies only with George R.R. Martin. For now, we wait and see. And so, this brings us to the end of this chapter, the Blackfyre rebellions that spanned 5 generations. In the next part, we will turn to Robert's Rebellion, the uprising that ultimately led to the fall of House Targaryen in Westeros. What were the causes behind it? What truly ignited the rebellion? Join me in the next videos to find out.